Wisconsin football program has been searching for their first ever national championship in over 100 years of their existence. And this season might be one of their best chances to get it done. We'll go over those chances, including the key players to keep an eye on for the rest of the season and the 2018 NFL Draft, as we go one-on-one with Ben Worgull, Wisconsin football basketball writer for Badger247.com on the OFN Meeting Room with Greg DePalma. All right, it's November 14, 2017. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning into the OFN Meeting Room as we go one-on-one with our Wisconsin football guest, Ben Worgull. Ben, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure.
All right, Ben. So Wisconsin, I think when we looked at the schedule at the beginning of the season, I guess you had to think that there was a distinct possibility that the team would be sitting here at this moment of time undefeated, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I think that after Wisconsin surprised, I think a lot of people last year by going 11-3 against a schedule that had them face 7 AP top 12 teams at the time of the meeting, and they survived that with just 3 losses, all 3 to Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State by 7 points or less, and the majority of this team returning. That you felt really good about where Wisconsin was sitting at the beginning of the year. And then you looked at their schedule. There was no Ohio State. There was no Michigan State. There was no Penn State on it. There was no big non-conference game against a nationally ranked SEC opponent. You felt that their toughest games would be at home, where they have been fantastic over the last 10-plus years. You felt that if they stay healthy, that this could be a special season. And ironically, they have not stayed healthy. They have been really banged up in a lot of spots, yet they've gotten players to step in and fill the void to allow this team to be off to the best start in school history.
Yeah, talk about the biggest issue right now. Would that be the receiving situation? Of course, with Jazz Peavy, the top receiver last year, really not playing much this year at 100% and just being kind of shut down. And now Cephas out for the year, who left last week as the leading receiver, or before last week as the leading receiver. That's got to really hurt Alex Hornibrook in the passing game, considering that this isn't a pass first option team anyway.
Yeah, and I think that they have done a good job, particularly wide receiver coach Ted Gilmore, in making this a team that has the threat of the pass. And in years past, if Wisconsin would have lost their number one wide receiver, the threat of the passing game would have been gone. But you look at the game against Iowa, where Wisconsin in reality was without their top 3 wide receivers who were pegged at the start of fall camp. George Rushing has missed the entire year as senior. Jazz Peavy has not been with the team for the last month or so due to injury and personal reasons. Now you lose Quintez Cephas in a game in Indiana a couple weekends ago. You have to wonder, okay, who's Alex Hornibrook going to throw to? Well, you have Danny Davis, a true freshman from Ohio, step in, have career highs and with catches and yards. You have Kendrick Pryor, who was having a really good fall camp until he got into a moped accident that knocked him out of commission for a couple weeks. He scores his first career rushing touchdown and his first career receiving touchdown in the first half. And then you have a player in A.J. Taylor, who just a couple years ago was a high school running back. And Wisconsin has really put a lot of time into developing him, and he's turned into a pretty special player. So it's guys stepping up when opportunities present itself, that the wide receiving spot, while it may lack those experienced dynamic players, it's got some pretty good young talents in it. And you ask me what the weakness is, it probably is Alex Hornibrook, who has really struggled to avoid the turnover. He has had turnovers in every Big Ten game. He threw 2 pick sixes last week against Iowa. He threw a pick six against Nebraska. He has put Wisconsin in some very tough positions defensively to defend the short field. But fortunately for him, Wisconsin's defense has been phenomenal in defending the short field and coming in those sudden change situations to really limit the damage on the scoreboard. So if Alex Hornibrook can clean up those type of mistakes, Wisconsin will be a very tough team over the next several weeks.
And of course, the saving grace with the receiving game is having Troy Fumagalli there, who's been playing for all 4 years. He's got over 1,500 yards career receiving. Right now, he's the leading receiver on the team. He's our lad's number 3 rated senior tight end to come out for the draft. So how big does he now become for this passing offense?
Well, he's been important all year long. He missed the game against, I want to say, Northwestern in the beginning of the year, and without him in the lineup, things just did not click. And you could tell that they were really missing him because here's a kid that's, 6'5", 6'6", in that range, and he's just a matchup nightmare because if you put a safety on him, he'll out-physical you in his pass routes, and if you put a linebacker on him, he'll just run right by you. And what's been nice for Wisconsin this year is they haven't had to rely on him a ton. Last year they had to do that. They had some injuries. They didn't have as much depth as they had this year. So it was pretty much Troy Fumagalli and Jazz Peavy who were carrying this offense. Now you have a tremendous running game that loads the box to allow some one-on-one coverage, and you have the players at wide receivers that are stepping up to make plays, in part because teams are starting to double Troy Fumagalli a little bit more to limit kind of his effectiveness. But the thing that has really impressed me about Fumagalli is the work that he has done in the run blocking game. He has become an exceptional run blocker over the course of the last few years, and you just look at the numbers of Jonathan Taylor this year to kind of see why he's having such a good year. It's because of the play of the offensive line, the fullback, and certainly Troy Fumagalli.
Well, that's got to help his draft stock because we know how difficult it is at the next level to find a complete tight end nowadays. Usually, if you're a good receiving tight end, you got some issues in the blocking game. But if you can have a good combination, which it sounds like to me Fumagalli might be ahead of the curve as far as being able to combine his receiving talent with his at least with his run blocking talent. And have you, with all the tight ends you've seen come out of this program, how does he rank?
Yeah, Wisconsin's had a lot of good ones over the years that are still playing on Sundays or have played the last couple of years. Guys like Owen Daniels, Garrett Graham, Lance Kendricks, Travis Beckham. I was with the Giants for a while, and you're missing a ton of them because there have been so many over the years that have been so effective. And that's, I think, what makes Wisconsin such a attractive program to NFL teams is because they run that pro style offense. They feature the run. They feature the true tight end. While so many other teams are going on the spread, Wisconsin kind of stays in the past with what works for them. And the tight end is such an integral part of what has made this team successful. And you look at Fumagalli, he's right up there with one of the best.
Okay.
And because of what I said, because of his ability to pass catch, his ability to take over games. I mean, you look at the game against Western Michigan last year in the Cotton Bowl, Western Michigan just couldn't defend him.
Yep.
And, part of that is the personnel they had, but part of it, too, is just Troy Fumagalli is just a freak athlete. I mean, he made a one-handed catch in that game, and you are amazed by it, but then you realize that's the hand where he only has four fingers on. He only has four fingers on his left hand.
Wow.
And it just makes him all that more impressive that he's able to do those things with that physical handicap. And you would never tell by watching him play that that's the case with him. He's someone who puts in a lot of time, a lot of effort with Alex Hornibrook, and they certainly have reaped the benefits of that the last 2 years now.
Now, as far as Hornibrook, was it a coincidence that because he got off to a really good start? I mean, I remember watching him in the BYU game after the first couple of games. I was going, wow. I mean, it looks like he's made a lot of good strides. He was really pinpoint in his accuracy, which was a little bit of an issue, of course, last year. But was it a coincidence? Was it? And what I mean by that is based on non-conference competition, and then once the conference competition started up, or was it also the receiving situation in general had started to become more of an issue? What would you, or was it something else? Because it did surprise me that he's been a little bit more erratic after the start he had this year.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you look at the game against BYU, it's kind of like Iowa a couple weekends ago against Ohio State, where it seemed like all the stars aligned for them on both sides of the ball to have what was their best performance clearly of the year. Kind of like what Alex Hornibrook experienced at BYU, where the Cougars had really been struggling in the couple games before that. They didn't play that well, I think, the week before against LSU. And Hornibrook tore him apart. He was 18 for 19. The one incompletion was a drop. He set the school record for completion percentage in a game. And you had to wonder, okay, is this the start of something, or is this where all the stars align? And I don't want to say it's the latter, but he has made consistently every game a big mistake where he makes a throw or a decision that you just cannot make at this collegiate level, especially in conference play. I mean, take the game against Iowa. He throws the first pick six. He stares down his target. He, for a good, couple seconds on an out route, throws across the field. That's easy money for a player like Josh Jackson. Pick number two on a play action jet sweep fake. He throws deep down the field to his only option, who is well covered. That's a play on first down where you just kind of have to eat it and live to play another down.
Yep.
On this third interception, on a 3rd and 18, he throws the ball into the flat to try to get in the field goal range, but he throws it high and he kind of, zips it instead of just putting a little bit of loft under it. And it goes off his receiver's hands, and Josh Jackson gets another one. It's those plays like that we have seen continuously week after week. Now, to his credit, when he makes a mistake, usually early in the game, he's able to lock in after that and play very well. He made some tough throws against Iowa after he got all the interceptions out of his system. But the problem is he has those interceptions to begin with. And at some point, especially now over the next several weeks where you're playing Michigan, you're going to be playing the Big Ten championship game, likely against Ohio State. You're going to be playing a big-time team in the bowl game, most likely. You can't make those type of mistakes and expect to keep playing with fire and survive. So it's a weekly question to head coach Paul Chryst. What can you do to help him? And Paul, each and every week, says we have to continue to work with him to simplify things to a degree to make it easier for him to not have those mistakes. I suggest that he just throw a pick six at the end of warm-ups and gets it out of his system because they've really tried everything else.
Yeah, because last year's game against Michigan was probably the ugliest. 9 of 25, 88 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. So, you can't afford that kind of game against. I mean, this is just going to be such an incredible game with these two defenses. You got the number 1 ranked total defense in Wisconsin against the number 3 ranked Michigan defense, and both teams are going to want to run the football. Michigan because they got a young receiver, a young coach with a young quarterback with young receivers, and Wisconsin because, as we just talked about, and plus we know they always want to run the football, especially with Jonathan Taylor having the year he's having. So. I guess this is just going to be will against will. Who doesn't turn the ball over? Field position, field goals. I mean, is that what this is going to come down to on Saturday?
I certainly would not expect a game like a year ago where it was one of those ugly slugfests. I think you'll see more offense in this game. How much more? Probably not a ton. But you look at that game a year ago in Ann Arbor. That was Alex Feinberg's second career start. He had just beaten Michigan State the week before and was another fantastic performance. And you're right. You read the numbers. He was not good. 88 passing yards is not going to get it done against any top teams in your conference. He took a hit early in that game that he said kind of stunned him a little bit. I think he said he bruised his sternum or something like that.
Okay. And
he continued to play through it. But again, young redshirt freshman quarterback making some bad decisions. It's kind of the same thing now this year. You have a young redshirt sophomore quarterback, but he's still kind of making those bad decisions. Wisconsin didn't run the ball last year very well. They were banged up on the offensive line.
Okay.
They're a little bit healthier this year. I think Wisconsin will be able to run the ball more effectively than a year ago. Defensively for Wisconsin, they were in that game because they held Michigan to, I think, 374-ish total yards, and Michigan missed 3 field goals. So that allowed the Badgers have some momentum. They were 7-7 late in the second half before Amara Darboh had the big touchdown catch against Derek Tyndall, who says that catch stuck in his craw a little bit. And now as a senior cornerback, he's looking for another opportunity. The one thing that I'm going to be interested to watch is how this Wisconsin offense will handle this Michigan defense. Because a year ago, and we just talked to the players yesterday about this, the guys on Wisconsin admitted they were out-toughed a year ago. Michigan played harder than they did. Okay. And at Wisconsin, that blue-collar mentality, that doesn't really sit well.
Yep.
That another team was the more physical team in the trenches. So, the loss in the Big Ten championship game stung this team against Penn State. The loss in overtime to Ohio State that happened a week after the Michigan State game, or 2 weeks after the Michigan State game, 2 weeks after the Michigan game, really bothered this team. But this loss to Michigan in the Big House a year ago really was the one that they were not pleased with. So I think this will be a motivated Wisconsin team this weekend, and maybe that's what's going to take to get this offense maybe in a little bit of a groove early on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a full disclosure, I am a Michigan fan, but I do expect Wisconsin has the big edge here because from what I've seen out of Brandon Peters, which I think he should have started week one, to tell you the truth. I think they're better off just going with the young kids early there, but it is what it is, and Peters is in there, and they still really haven't taken the training wheels off completely. And I just I don't know if you're going to be able to do that in this situation, in this environment against that defense. And again, he doesn't have a lot of senior experienced receivers to go to. So if you just eliminate that passing game that I just don't see Michigan having and expecting so much for Peters on the road in his first big start in that type of environment, I just think it's probably asking a little too much for Michigan's offense, and therefore I think unless Wisconsin gives the game away with some turnovers, I would suspect that that Wisconsin, as the favorite, should be the favorite, and I expect them to come out ahead.
Well, I mean, you talk about the turnovers. Alex Hornibrook throws 3 picks last week. He has a botched center exchange that he drops on.
Yep. Jonathan
Taylor, their super true freshman running back, who pretty much is a lock for Big Ten Freshman of the Year, he fumbled twice, lost his 4th fumble of the year. So this team has not played clean in that department. So, that's the one major issue, the one thing that's hanging over this team. Can they play clean football?
Yep.
And both of these teams, I think, are still looking to kind of validate themselves to a degree. I mean, Wisconsin, we talked about the schedule. They have not played an elite level team. Michigan's closer to that compared to an Illinois, Indiana, Purdue, Maryland, the teams they've been beating up the last couple of weeks.
Sure.
And you look at Michigan's defense. Michigan, the last 3 weeks, has given up total less than 700 yards and 34 combined points. Of their 10 games this year, they've held 8 teams under 300 yards and 9 teams to under 21 points. The one game they didn't was probably arguably the best team they have played to this point, and that was at Penn State, where they gave up 500 plus and over 40 points. So both these teams, you think you know how good they are, but they really haven't played that top end team yet. And I think for both Michigan and Wisconsin, that test will come this weekend. And I think it'll be fascinating to watch how this will play out, especially since Wisconsin and Michigan haven't played in Madison since 2009.
Who are the best prospects in your mind on this team, pro prospects to come out of the draft? I mentioned Fumagalli, number 3 rated senior tight end for our lads. TJ Edwards is the number 2 underclassman inside linebacker rated right now at our lads. And then you got a whole bunch of other guys. So there's a lot of prospects that look like they're going to be some very interesting guys to keep an eye on, especially if few of them wind up coming out, depending on some injuries with some players as well. But who do you like the most? Who are the guys? We mentioned Fumagalli, and is Edwards the clear guy? And then who else do you like?
Well, I like their entire offensive line. I think Wisconsin's offensive line is tremendously talented and tremendously versatile. You look at Michael Deere, the left tackle. He started as a center. Last year he played left guard and center, and now they moved him out to left tackle. So he does a lot of things on this offensive line, and he has, I think, a great pro potential once they figure out where he's going to go.
Okay.
And, I think there's some thought in his mind that this could be his last home game on Saturday, that he might make that jump to the next level.
Okay.
It's hard to tell if he's ready or not because, he's pretty raw at left tackle, but he's a very good player. David Edwards was a midseason All-American at right tackle, 6'7", 300 plus pounds. He was a high school quarterback in Illinois. As a redshirting freshman, he was a tight end. So they have built his game into that tackle body, and he has played fantastic in a couple of years. I think those 2 tackles right now have a really good future when they decide to go. Both Benchwall, right guard, could be a mid to late round pick whenever if he would decide to go. I'm guessing he would stay for another year. You look at defense. This is a defense that is stacked with veterans. Alec James on the defensive line has been playing fantastic this year. A kid from Brookville, just outside Milwaukee, with his play, his ability to get to the quarterback. Connor Sheehy, same thing. Another underclassman. Look at Nick Nelson, the junior corner who transferred in from Hawaii a couple years ago. He leads the country, or he's top 3 in the country in pass breakups.
Yep.
And he routinely covers the opposing team's best wide receiver and takes him out of the game. I mean, DJ Moore of Maryland got nothing against him. Ricky Smalley of Illinois got nothing against him. Simmy Cobbs of Indiana and him had a really good battle where it went back and forth. I think he has the potential to declare early and be a good player. A lot of these guys on this team have really good draftable profiles. But one guy that's not, and he probably won't get drafted, but I would fully expect to see him on an NFL roster next year if he really wants to be, is the fullback, Austin Ramish. You search Twitter for this kid, and he just crushed some guys from Iowa. Just absolutely flattened guys in the hole, one-on-one blocks to open up big running lanes for his tailbacks. It's incredibly impressive, the season that this kid is putting together, that he could be one of those solid lead blockers, kind of like what Derek Watt is for San Diego. Derek Watt was the last full-time fullback here. Austin Ramish is cut right from the same cloth, and some team is going to look at this kid, like this kid, and put him right in front of that multi-million-dollar tailback that they have and have a lot of success.
Yeah, he is Arled's 8th-rated senior fullback at this point in time right now for the draft.
Move him up. He's good.
He's
really good.
Sounds good. A couple more things before I let you go, Ben. I wanted to ask you, is the field goal kicking situation, big kick, whether it's this week or in a big moment, undefeated, on the line, you've got a kicker that's been here for 4 years. Are you confident he's going to get the job done somewhere, between 40 and 50 yards?
Yeah, Rafael Gaglianone is very good. He went through some issues the last couple of years. 2 years ago, he had a tremendous true freshman season, and as a true sophomore, really kind of struggled because of some off-season injuries. Was able to get into a good rhythm with his training. He missed a lot of kicks. Entering his junior year last year, was kicking fantastic. Made a huge kick against LSU, like 48 some yards that ended up winning the game. And then his back kind of started to give out towards the end of non-conference play, and he had to undergo back surgery. Missed the entire conference season. Was able to get a medical red shirt. So this is a redshirt junior who has kicked the last 3 years. This year, his numbers are really good. I don't have them in front of me. I think he's like 19 for 21. And while a lot of his kicks have been 41-ish yards and in, he's made some big kicks over the years. A lot of game-winning kicks. Game-winning kick of the Holiday Bowl. I mentioned the LSU game. There's been a handful of others. I mean, his first collegiate kick was against LSU in Houston. I think it was 51 yards, and he drilled it.
Okay, yeah, I remember that one.
He's got some ice water in his veins. Doesn't let anything bother him.
Okay.
Lovie Smith at Illinois in the wind and the rain at the end of the first half called 3 timeouts to try to ice him, and Gaglianone went in there, stayed with his routine, and then drilled a 50-some yarder, longest kick of the year, right down the pipe. So he's very calm. He's very collected. It's a new long snapper they have this year, a true freshman from Arizona. They put him on scholarship because he was the number 1 long snapper in the country, and that whole snapper, holder, kicker trio has been very effective for this team this year, and it's been a big benefit to when this offense does stall out, they're able to come away with points.
You've had an incredible run of defensive coordinators here. And I really like the job, and I think Justin Wilcox is going to be the perfect fit in California from what I've seen so far. Having a coach that knows how to bring some defense to that school and that conference is a smart move. But what about Jim Leonard? There's a lot of talk about what a great job he's done and what a great coaching career he's got ahead of him. And as a Jet fan, I know him well. I know how much Rex trusted him when he was coaching the Jets, and Jim Leonard was a really good player for the Jets. So what kind of job has he done? And is everything we've heard about him ringing true, that he's going to be a heck of a coach in years to come?
That and more, I think. It was surprising initially that Jim was the pick to be the defensive coordinator. They have an outside linebacker coach on the staff, and Tim Tibesar, who applied for the job after Dave Aranda left and went to Justin Wilcox, who was fired from USC. The defense was fantastic. And then, Tibesar applied for it again, and they gave it to Jim, who was just 1 year into a college coaching career. Last year was his first year coaching college, period. He coached defensive backs in Wisconsin, led the FBS in turnovers, and interceptions played a huge part of that. And so you wonder, okay, what kind of defense is Jim going to bring to this team? And I'll be real honest with you, in talking to some of the guys in this team, you haven't seen half of Jim Layard's playbook yet, which is scary to think about, but they haven't needed to use it against a lot of teams because they haven't played those teams where you really had to, flip over to page, 35 and use those. They're on, comp still in the mid-teens. And each week is a little bit more of a wrinkle. A lot of twists at the line of scrimmage between the linemen and the outside linebackers, a lot of switches, rubs, different things. Last couple of weeks you've seen the outside linebacker line up outside the end and at the snap come across the formation to find the gap between the center and guard and have a clear lane at the quarterback. So many times over the last couple of weeks, a blitzing linebacker has had a clear lane at a quarterback to force a quick throw that results in an interception, a pass breakup, or a punt. It's just amazing the work that this defense has done without some of their best players. Jack Sitchie was expected to be an All-American this year by a lot of people. He tears his ACL in camp. And, that's a player that could have played multiple positions in this defense. They lost some key reserves in camp too. And as the season has gone on, they've lost some key personnel. Chris Orr, their inside linebacker, who's had a fantastic year, didn't play last week after getting hurt in Indiana, won't play this week. Yet they still keep on ticking. They hold Iowa to 66 yards. Jim has kind of combined the talent of this team on defense. A lot of guys who have played together for 2, 3, sometimes 4, been together for 5 years, and now starting to mix some NFL principles and tendencies into it. And the thing that everyone who we talk to on the defense says about Jim is he teaches the game exceptionally well. And that makes it easy to soak up what he says like a sponge and then use it on the field. They game plan very well. They practice really well to the point where games are easy for this team because they know everything that's going to happen. They're confident in what they're doing, and then they can just go out and execute.
All right. By the way, is Paul Chryst going to be here for the next 30 years?
I can't see him leaving for anything. I didn't even think if the Packer job opened up and they threw a boatload of money at him, he would probably still stay at Wisconsin because this school has meant so much to him. He's the coach's son. His dad coached at Wisconsin. He lived in Platteville, which is in the southwest part of the state. He played football at Wisconsin. He is assistant coach at Wisconsin. He was the offensive coordinator at Wisconsin. He goes and coaches at Pitt for 3 years. He gets the opportunity to come back and just look at the job that he's done. Now, I'm not saying he'll never leave. We thought Brett Bielema would never leave. And, in retrospect, he probably shouldn't have. Looking at his profile. But Paul seems so comfortable here, and his assistant seems so comfortable here. His offensive coordinator is a Wisconsin alum. His defensive coordinator is a Wisconsin alum. His inside linebacker coach has coached with him for years. His running back coach has coached here previously. All of his grad assistants and wait staff are Wisconsin alums.
Wow.
There are so many alumni here. His tight end coach, Chris, coached at Wisconsin. Now he's obviously been helping a tight end group and develop Troy Fumagalli. There are so many connections to this staff that allow them to really go out and recruit at a high level and feel comfortable at this university. So, 30 years, if they keep having seasons like this, book it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that Green Bay, though, thing. Because who knows? That job might become available soon.
You never know.
You never know.
The defensive coordinator spot, maybe Jim Miller's going to go up to Green Bay to be the defensive coordinator, which I think a lot of Wisconsin fans would hope. Maybe he can do both jobs. I think that would keep Wisconsin fans really happy if he can fix the Packers defense.
Last question. Hornibrook, if he were to go down, who's the number 2 quarterback?
That's been the biggest fear for Wisconsin fans probably since January.
Really? Okay.
If something happens to Alex Hornibrook, what does Wisconsin do? And the answer will be true freshman Jack Cohn has been the number 2 quarterback. He won that job in the fall. And to be honest with you, there's a large portion of this fan base that has grown tired of Alex Hornibrook and his turnovers, some of his throws. This fan base is, for being 10-0 and 7-0 in the Big Ten, they get on this kid a lot for some of his decision making, fair or unfair. But they want to see Jack Cohn play. And to be honest, I kind of want to see Jack Cohn play, but I don't want to see him, take the first snaps of the second quarter against Michigan, because I think Michigan would eat this kid alive.
Sure.
There is a huge drop-off with the recruiting level talent at Wisconsin right now at the quarterback spot, because when Gary Anderson was here, he recruited dual threat quarterbacks. He recruited guys like Tanner McAvoy, who Wisconsin converted to safety, DJ Gillens, who never saw the field before transferring, Austin Offenses, who only lasted a semester here before transferring. All his quarterback commits were a bust, and therefore when Joel Stabby graduated a couple years ago, you didn't have really anyone to take the reins. Last year you switched between a redshirt freshman and Bart Houston, who was a fifth-year senior, who Paul recruited before Paul left for Pitt. And now you're trying to restock that and do it quickly in case that injury happens.
Yeah.
I mean, a year ago, Alex Hornibrook was knocked out of the season finale against Minnesota with a head injury, and the Badgers had to rely on Bart Houston for the final 2 games of the year. And now Bart played well because he's a senior; he's been around a long time.
Yep.
This year, you don't have that security blanket. So Jack Cohn has played some, but nowhere near played reps that are against a defense or in a high-pressure situation like he would see on Saturday should that happen. So that would be the big fear. The thought is that they would not change anything, but I would bet my mortgage that they would have to really dub down this offense, and you'd see a lot of short passes, you'd see a lot of runs. People are clamoring to see Jack Cohn every time Alex Hornibrook throws a pick, and all I have to say is be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Because from a kid that has won 15 consecutive starts, I think it's 15, maybe it's even more than that. For someone that has done that to a kid that's never played meaningful snaps, I mean, that's going to be a huge issue should that occur here over the final 3+ games of the season.
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, so there's a chance that he hasn't played at all, right? So he could redshirt?
No, Jack has played. He has played.
Okay.
He's played about 5 games or so, taken a couple series. He's thrown 3 passes this whole year. So, I mean, he has gotten some experience, but certainly he's not he's nowhere near to face a defense like Michigan's on Saturday.
Yeah, I just wanted,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if it was one of those things about making sure that if he gets in there, they don't want to burn his red shirt. But hey, if he's already
right now they have Alex Hornibrook's a redshirt sophomore. Jack Cohn is the number 2 as a true freshman. Cray Lyles is the number 3 as a redshirt freshman. And then they have another true freshman on their roster. So this is a very young quarterback room. And Alex Hornibrook has, minus the interceptions, he's done a great job.
Yeah.
And you just have to hope that at some point it clicks for him and he really has that game like he did against BYU where you can ride that and build some momentum off of that.
Yes.
Because they keep playing with fire, and at some point it's going to burn them. Yeah,
if you get good quarterback play the rest of the season, like BYU quarterback play, this team definitely is right up there with the top teams in college football. I think
without question.
That's the one issue. But you know what? I'm not a big Stidham fan either. But when you get really good running game and really good defense, it helps your quarterback out. And as long as you don't throw the interceptions, though, then you can win some big ball games. By the way, is that other freshman you were talking about, Danny Vandenboom?
Danny Vandenboom. His dad, Matt Vandenboom, was an all Big Ten safety at Wisconsin a couple decades ago. And Danny Vandenboom comes from Kimberly, who plays in Division I, the highest level here in the state of Wisconsin. And they're going for their 69th, 70th straight win on Friday in the state championship game. I mean,
nice.
that is a dynasty in this state. And that school has thrown a lot of really good players at Wisconsin over the last couple of years. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Vandenboom will stay at quarterback or if he's going to switch to another position like his old man did.
Ben, I appreciate your time. Great job, and best of luck not only on Saturday, but obviously if this team wins a few more games. I don't care. I said this last week. I didn't care what anybody says. There is no way Wisconsin was going to go undefeated and not play and not get a trip to the playoffs. I 100% guaranteed it. And 1 week later, everybody's already realizing how obvious it is now that that's going to be the case. Of course, a few things had to happen here or there, but when doesn't a few things happen anyway? There's no way an undefeated Big Ten team was going to get shut out of the playoffs. No chance.
And you knew chaos was going to happen last
Yes.
week because, of the top 10, 6 of them played each other. And so you knew Notre Dame or Miami was going to lose. You knew that Georgia or Alabama was going to lose. You knew Oklahoma or TCU one of them was going to get eliminated. And you just hoped that it was the higher seeded teams to open up the alley for Wisconsin. So Wisconsin did their business, biggest win of the year for them. It'll be interesting to see where they get slotted, probably in the 5 spot tonight in the rankings. But to get Notre Dame out of the picture in their biggest game was huge. Game Georgia, that first loss, was huge. So it's really – and this team doesn't really pay attention to the rankings. They just worry about the next game on their schedule. But you can tell that this team now knows that it controls their fate, that if they win their final 3 games, which they're expecting to do, they will be in great position to most likely go to Southern California and play in that Rose Bowl with a shot at their first national championship game in the modern era.
Yeah, that would be for a Big Ten team. There's nothing better than that. So, Ben, I appreciate it, and I look forward to having another chat with you, hopefully in a few weeks.
My pleasure, Greg. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So again, we enjoy talking football here on this network for many reasons, especially college. And this is why. Ben Worgull did a great job giving the lowdown on Wisconsin football. And I know it's not easy because to follow teams like Wisconsin, who, all right, they're not West. All right, but just it's a very difficult thing for East Coasters to really grasp the West or even sometimes the Midwest teams like the Wisconsins. Especially, look, when you're in the Big Ten, everybody's talking about Ohio State and Michigan. And then you're going to talk about Penn State sometimes. And then you're also going to talk about Michigan State sometimes. But you don't, even though Wisconsin has been a very successful program for since the Barry Alvarez days that I've been following college football, they just, it's especially and they don't have the sexy players, the ones that you get all juiced up about. Sure, they've had this is running back U. So they've produced a lot of great running backs. The Ron Danes of the world, just recently Melvin Gordon. A lot of good talented players come out of here. Heck, they're all-time career passing leaders, the offensive coordinator of Seattle Seahawks. So this is a legit program, but the fans sometimes, especially if you don't know what it is that makes this team special, potentially special, that's why we love to do this. And it's great to have somebody on as educated as Ben. And you know what? I could have probably talked to Ben for another half hour. I truly could have. There were so many other topics and players and such. But you know what? If all goes well for Wisconsin, well, even if it doesn't go well, we'll definitely reach out to Ben again and have him on the program. But if all does go well, and by the way, if you had listened to some of our other shows earlier this season, about, what was it? Let me get it out. I think it was 6 weeks ago. I'll get the exact date when I took Wisconsin to win the national championship. Let me see here, because I think at the time, now again, meaning I took them on my as a future play. Not that was okay. This is my pick to win the national championship. I didn't go that crazy at the time, but I like to do the futures. And Wisconsin, I got them at 33-1 on September the 28th. How about that? So after that big BYU performance, that sold me. I was like, whoa, wait a second. If Alex Honeyberg can play like that with this team, with that schedule at 33-1, I'm jumping on Wisconsin. So yeah, that's why I went ahead and took the Badgers. And you know what? Even though Hornibrook hasn't played anywhere near as good as that game yet, again, that's okay. Their schedule is still what it is. Again, I do believe they're going to beat Michigan this week, as long as they don't have another turnover fest, and they will beat Minnesota. And then you know what? They will beat Ohio State. Yes, and they're going to be a big dog in that game, and that's even better. So I feel real good about Wisconsin going to the playoffs. And then at that point, we will find out if Hornibrook can up his game, get himself, because don't forget, Jake Coker sure didn't look very good for Alabama the year they won that championship a few years ago. He did not look good. He played his best football towards the end of the season, really the last couple of games, and most importantly, his best games, he pulled an Eli Manning. He played his best football in the playoffs. That's what Jake Coker did. So anything can happen, especially in college football. They're so young, these kids. You can give them time to grow, especially if you get to the playoffs and you have a few weeks to continue to practice and get ready. That time off that you didn't really have to prepare from week to week during the season, now you have that. And if you have a really good coaching staff and a really good game plan, then you could really turn the trick. So I think Wisconsin, and I'm not just saying that, of course, being that we're doing this show, because as I said, they are right there. They're one of my plays to go out and win the national championship, and I still believe in that wholeheartedly. So anyway, great job once again by Ben Worgull, and we look forward to having him on the program really soon. Okay, so that is going to do it here on the OFN Meeting Room. By the way, check back with us tomorrow. We have 2 interviews. We're going to go one-on-one with Robert Gagliardi, senior sports editor and beat writer for Wyoming. We'll talk about Josh Allen and that program. Brian Matthews covers Auburn football for Rivals. Will be with us as well tomorrow. That's at 3. The Wyoming interview at 2. We'll talk with Ryan Fowler, radio host for Alabama later this week. Dave Matter, Missouri athletics beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, about the Missouri Tigers. And then don't forget to check back with us on Friday for our college football preview show with Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com, right here on the Our Lads Football Radio Network. You can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. You can also check out ourlads.com for the best college football depth charts in the industry. And we'll see you next time on the Our Lads Football Radio Network, where it's never too early to think about the NFL Draft.